Greetings, fellow watchers. My explosive videos have been up for over a year, but I still have only 9 subscribers, so that's all the proof I need to know that there is a conspiracy out there to suppress the truth. But you can't stop the signal, Mal, and so I soldier on. Today's episode is all about Wizards Unite, the Harry Potter themed game made by Niantic, the same people who made Pokemon Go and Ingress. Wizards Unite starts out pretty fun and cute. The main goal is to protect the Statute of Secrecy, SOS for short, from something called the Calamity, the name we've been using for the after effects of a spell gone majorly wrong. We receive part of the storyline for what caused the calamity and how to fix it, which is given to us slowly over time through these nuggets called SOS assignments. Little assignments we do in-game that, once we've completed, give us more information about the calamity from Ministry of Magic employees like Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Constance Pickering. But then the SOS assignment storyline cuts off abruptly. In fact, we haven't received new SOS assignments in months, which leads me to believe that all is not quite as it seems. One suspects that a large new twist in the storyline is about to arrive, and no doubt a very bad one for wizard kind. From what I have seen so far from Ingress and Pokemon Go, I initially expected some kind of division of players into competing teams, which I would immediately distrust, obviously. If you remember how the Sorting Hat warned of dividing into houses during the second rise of Voldemort, then you know what I mean. Imagine my surprise when we were instead sorted by profession into professors, aurors, and magizoologists. Because, although we are sorted, I was pleasantly surprised that these divisions are complementary and not competitive. In fact, it's easier to do a fortress battle with people from other professions than it is to do it solo or with only people from your same profession. This is great news so far. But I worry again about the abrupt halt in SOS assignments now that we're finally invested in the game. Now that they've got us hooked, now that we've let our guard down, maybe it's when the real division will begin. The stopping of SOS assignments lets us know that something is about to change, and we've been warned time and again through the SOS assignments that the investigation into the disappearances at the ministry before the calamity ended, before anything was solved. There appears to be someone working at cross purposes within the ministry, and it's likely Constance Pickering. All is not what it seems, and we're about to find out that Wizards Unite is actually a front for Grindelwald's Cold War against the Statute of Secrecy. As I've said in previous videos, we know that rumors of his death are much exaggerated, and he's back on his quest for the Deathly Hallows. I suggest that the big twist we're about to see is that Wizards Unite is going to be divided into those for Grindelwald and those against Grindelwald, namely the Seekers and the Watchers. If you remember from your good book, Volume 7, Luna Lovegood's father, Xenophilius Lovegood, explains that the Seekers are on a quest to find the Deathly Hallows, with the implication that they would find them in order to use them. However, a lesser-known group of wizards wants to keep the Hallows from being used. Those are termed the Watchers, because they are keeping watch over where the Hallows are and making sure that, number one, the Hallows are kept separate from each other, and number two, that they are kept safe from being used. The Seekers want to wield the Deathly Hallows, and the Watchers want to prevent them from being used. If it helps, you can think of Dumbledore's use of the Mirror of Erised in the Good Books, Volume 1, as an analogy. No one could solve the puzzle and determine the location of the Sorcerer's Stone unless they were trying to find it, but not use it. Quote unquote. Only one who wanted to find the stone, find it, but not use it, would be able to get it. Similarly, the Watchers are trying to locate the Hallows to either keep them in separate locations, keep them from being used at all, or to destroy them. The Seekers, on the other hand, seek the Hallows in order to use them to rule over wizard kind and humanity. Now, back to the problem at hand, Wizards Unite. As I was saying, I believe that the teams will be divided into Seekers and Watchers, and the stated goal of the game will be to use or dispose of the Deathly Hallows. There will be a schism within the Ministry about whether that is a good idea or not. Harry Potter will obviously be on the side of disposing of them, but Constance Pickering will likely be a Seeker. Oh, she'll have some good and noble reason for why we should use the Hallows, but mark my words, she will vote for using them. You may have noticed one obvious flaw in my theory, that the Hallows can be in at most 3 places across the globe, since there are only 3 Hallows, and so a global game based entirely on finding the Hallows couldn't possibly sustain enough interest to keep players worldwide looking for the Hallows long enough to actually find them. So, how is Grindelwald using the rest of the time? How can Seekers and Watchers, who are not physically close to any of the Hallows, still play a meaningful game? There must be supporting quests for them to help their team somehow. If this game is anything like Ingress in Pokemon Go, the games that came before, I suspect that each team is going to try to take over as much ground as possible. So, like how the Death Eaters eventually took over the Ministry of Magic, each team is going to take over different local wizarding outposts, presumably by confunding or imperiousing people from the other team. And once you have spelled enough people in that location, you get to take over that particular outpost. And the in-game storyline will somehow explain how taking over ground helps your team find the Hallows. Straightforward enough, right? But it's a fair point to ask. Does taking over that much ground actually help you find the Hallows? Also, how parallel is the goal of taking over other people and outposts to the real-world objective the game is actually trying to achieve? Obviously, in general, the more resources you have, personnel, money, or otherwise, the easier it is to accomplish really anything. So imperiousing a bunch of people, especially powerful ones, should help you. But let's get more specific. Having a bunch of people on your side, whether wittingly or unknowingly, gives you enough latent magic to power an enormous spell, if you're willing to use that stolen power. Do you remember when Voldemort used a trace on his name to track down members of the Order of the Phoenix? The idea being that only members of the Order of the Phoenix would dare say his name out loud instead of saying, quote unquote, you know who. That's the kind of enormous worldwide spell we're talking about. So, pretty much the only possible conclusion we can come to is that Grindelwald is using this global network of Wizards Unite players to cast a powerful spell of his own, using all our latent magic to power it. Once you've imperioused or confunded someone in-game, then you control their phone app. Grindelwald can then start sucking magical power from people via this phone app, just small amounts that they won't even notice unless they are well trained in the defense against the dark arts. In fact, you can start draining the latent magical powers of people who are just magical enough to have some latent magic, but not magical enough to have received an acceptance to a wizarding school. If you recall, Pottermore explains how it records people from birth if they have enough magic to reach a certain threshold, but everyone who may be just under that threshold has some latent magic but is not trained to do anything with it, and certainly is not trained to notice if someone is siphoning it from them. What could Grindelwald possibly need to power that would consume so much energy? The answer comes from a fellow watcher. He explains how Mad-Eye Moody's eye is likely an artifact as powerful as the Hallows themselves, and it can be used to detect them. I'll leave a link below to the full explanation in the description, but as you recall, I assume, Mad-Eye Moody was able to detect Harry Potter under the invisibility cloak when he tripped on a loud stair while holding the golden egg during the Triwizard Tournament, as described in the Good Books, Volume 4. So we know Mad-Eye's fake eye can see through a genuine Hallow invisibility cloak, which is no easy feat. Surely this eye can also see the other Hallows for what they are. But of course, this eye can only be in one place at a time. Or can it? Because of Wizards Unite, using the camera from everyone's cell phone and the latent power from everyone who has been imperioused or confunded through the game, Mad-Eye's eye ought to be able to detect any of the Hallows if it were to appear in someone's cell phone camera while playing Wizards Unite. Which means that Wizards Unite has been a huge bait and switch, telling us that it's a mere game to teach us how to uphold the Statute of Secrecy, when the plan is to do the opposite, to find the Deathly Hallows and then use them in order to show that wizards are more powerful than the No-Maj, and then to rule over the No-Maj. Knowing what you know now, please be careful about the new SOS assignments when they come through. Do they divide us further? Do they get us closer to finding the Deathly Hallows? Leave your comments below. I welcome any new insights into Grindelwald's plans.